Hey guys, tonight we travel back to a time when the world was young and the night sky was not yet filled with all its stories. Come closer to the fire, or what serves as our fire in this digital age. Let the light of your screen be the flickering flame that holds the darkness at bay. For a moment, just listen. Listen past the sounds of your room, past the hum of the city outside. Can you hear it? The air itself seems to crackle with an ancient energy. That is Zeus, restless, atop his mountain, idly tossing thunderbolts across a stormy sky, each one a punctuation mark in a decree that has no author but his own whim. The sea, far below, doesn't just crash against the shore. It churns with Poseidon's sullen rage, a deep indigo turmoil mirroring the god's own fickle moods. And here, in the quiet spaces between, shadows dance on the marble walls of Mount Olympus. This is where the real power lies, not in the lightning or the waves, but in the silent plots of gods, who have grown bored with their own perfection. We like to think of their world as one of heroic deeds and golden light, of noble quests and divine wisdom, but that is only half the story, the half the gods wanted us to hear. The truth is, you probably wouldn't have survived a single afternoon under their brand of celestial justice, where an inconvenient opinion could earn you an eternity chained to a rock, and a moment of pride could unravel your entire lineage. Justice was not blind. It was a weapon, wielded by beings of immense power and even more immense fragility. Tonight, we are not walking in their golden light. We are stepping into the vast, endless dark they reserved for those who dared to defy them. We journey into the shadows of divine silence, where the echoes of mortal courage meet the finality of eternal wrath. It is a story that whispers through the ages, a tale of three souls who looked a god in the eye and did not look away. They were gifted with sight, with skill, with ambition, and for that, they were cursed to an eternity of night. A night without stars, a night without dawn, a night where their own gifts would become their torment. So, before you settle into comfort, if stories like this bring you a sense of peace, please consider a gentle tap on the like and subscribe buttons. There's no obligation, of course, but it truly helps our late-night journeys find more fellow travelers. It's always a comfort to know I'm not just speaking into the void. Let me know where you are in your local time, like Hawaii, 11 p.m. We'll explore this night together, a silent company scattered across the sleeping globe. Now, let the outside world fade away. Dim the lights down low. Let the soft white noise of a fan carry you. Take a deep breath and step with me into tonight's. Our story begins where the world has gone quiet. Forget the grand temples of Delphi, bustling with priests and petitioners, their golden marble glinting in the sun. Picture instead a place forgotten by the main roads, a small, crumbling sanctuary, clinging to the side of a lonely mountain. Here, the stones are cold even at midday, and the only sounds are the wind and the skittering of lizards over sun-baked rock. This is the home of Lyra, and this is the domain of her god. She was not born a seer. The gift, as they called it, was not in her blood. It was given to her. Or, more accurately, it was inflicted upon her. As a child, she had wandered too close to a sacred spring, one belonging to Apollo, the god of light, music, and prophecy. He saw her, and in a moment of what could have been divine affection or divine malice with the gods, the two are often indistinguishable, he reached out and touched her mind. It was not a gentle touch, it was a branding. From that day forward, Lyra saw things not in the way a priestess does, chewing laurel leaves and inhaling sacred fumes to fall into a controlled, theatrical trance for a waiting audience. No Lyras. Visions were constant, unwelcome guests in the quiet house of her own soul. They came like slivers of glass, a flash of a fishing boat's mast snapping in a storm that had not yet formed, the taste of ash from a baker's oven that would burn down next week, the sudden gut-wrenching grief of a mother whose son was still alive and well, but would fall from an olive tree by the next full moon. These were not grand prophecies of kings and empires. They were the small, sharp-edged sorrows of everyday life, and they were relentless. She carried the village's future heartaches within her, a walking vessel of tragedies waiting to happen. The people in the nearby hamlet didn't know what to make of her. They sought her out in hushed desperation, asking about lost livestock or worrying over a child's cough, yet they could not look her in the eye. They saw the unbearable weight behind her gaze. They saw a young woman whose face was etched with the phantom pains of 100 different futures. They left her small offerings, a bit of bread, a handful of olives, a clay cup of wine, but they left them at a distance, as if her sorrow were a sickness they might catch. And so, she was utterly alone, save for the god who had cursed her. With his favor, Apollo, the radiant one. He was the source of her sight, the sun that cast the terrible shadows in her mind. She never saw him, not truly, but she felt his presence constantly. It was a low hum at the base of her skull, a pressure behind her eyes, a feeling of being perpetually watched, perpetually judged. His gift was not free. The price was her peace. The price was herself. She was merely an instrument, a finely tuned lyre for him to play his discordant songs of what is, to, come. She was his oracle, but she was also his prisoner. She often wondered about the god's nature. He was the patron of poetry, music, and the civilizing arts, the bringer of healing and light. Yet, she had stumbled upon older stories, whispers in fragmented texts, and the rambling songs of traveling bards, stories of the Thirgelia, an ancient festival in his honor, a festival where 2 of the city's ugliest inhabitants were chosen as scapegoats, feasted, and then driven out, or in darker times, stoned or thrown from a cliff to carry away the community's impurities. A purification, they called it. Lyra understood. Apollo loved purity, he loved light, but he would create the deepest darkness to achieve it. He would sacrifice the few to comfort the many. He was a god of brilliant, beautiful, terrifying order. Tonight, something is different. The usual cacophony of small, impending griefs has fallen silent. The air in her small stone chamber is heavy. Still, the low hum of Apollo's presence is sharpening, rising in pitch, like a string being tightened to its breaking point. Lyra sits on the cold floor, her hands gripping her knees, her knuckles white. She knows this feeling. It is the prelude to a vision unlike the others. Not a sliver of glass this time, but the opening of a chasm. The silence is not an absence of prophecy, but the drawing of a great, terrible breath before the truth is spoken. She closes her eyes, but it makes no difference. Her sight does not depend on them. The darkness behind her lids begins to swirl, not with the familiar gray of everyday sorrows, but with the impossible colors of cosmos and chaos. The weight is becoming unbearable, a physical pressure on her chest, her mind, her very soul. How much truth can one person be expected to hold? She is about to find out. For the god is not just showing her the fate of a farmer or a sailor. He is about to show her the fate of the gods themselves. The breaking point arrives not with a sound, but with a feeling of profound physical collapse. The stone floor beneath Lyra seems to fall away, the walls of her sanctuary dissolving into smoke. She is untethered, a single point of consciousness, adrift in an ocean of raw, terrifying potential. The low hum of Apollo's presence has become a deafening roar inside her mind, a static that consumes all thought, all sense of self. And then, through the static, the images begin to coalesce. This is not a vision of the mortal world. There are no fields, no oceans, no familiar sun or moon. She is looking at the architecture of reality itself, the scaffolding of the cosmos, and it is groaning under an impossible strain. She sees Mount Olympus, but not as the bards sing of it, a shining paradise of gold and marble. What she sees is a sick, decaying thing. The golden gates are tarnished, flaking away like old paint. The brilliant light that was said to perpetually bathe its peaks is flickering, weak, casting long, dancing shadows that seem to writhe with a life of their own. A creeping frost, black and hungry, crawls up the marble pillars, not the frost of winter, but the cold of absolute emptiness. And the gods, she sees them, but they are not the vibrant, tempestuous beings of the myths. They are statues, lifeless. Ares, the god of war, sits slumped against a column, his bronze armor covered in a film of grey dust, his hand frozen midway to his sword. Hera, the queen, is a silent figure on her throne, her face a mask of disbelief, a single, black tear frozen on her cheek. And Zeus, his great throne, the seat of all power, is empty. His master thunderbolt lies, shattered on the floor beside it, not in pieces, but crumbled into a pile of dull, powerless gravel. There is no sound of battle, no enemy at the gates. This is not a defeat. It is an extinguishment. It is the universe growing tired of them. Her perspective is wrenched through this silent, dying world, a helpless observer to the twilight of divinity. She is pulled towards the temple of the sun, the domain of her patron, her captor. The great bronze doors hang open, and inside, there is only a fading glow. In the center of the grand hall stands Apollo, the radiant one, but there is no radiance left. His form is translucent, his golden hair fading to gray, his perfect features blurred and indistinct. He holds his lyre, but the strings are snapped, hanging limp and useless. He looks up, and for a horrifying, impossible moment, Lyra feels him see her. Not the mortal girl in the stone sanctuary miles and worlds away, but her consciousness, this spark of sight he himself had created, now bearing witness to his end. There is no anger in his eyes. There is no sorrow. There is only a vast, cosmic weariness. He is the god of prophecy. He has seen this his own end 1,000,000,000 times in the visions he grants to others. He is the first to know, and the last to fade. He is watching his own truth come to pass. The vision tells her the cause, not in words, but in a feeling, a concept so cold and vast it threatens to annihilate her. It is not an enemy, it is entropy. It is the simple, final truth that even immortality has a lifespan. The gods were not killed, they were simply over. Their story had been told. The final image is the most harrowing. She sees the three fates, the Moirai in their cave at the center of everything. They are not weaving. Their loom is dark and tangled. Their hands, which had spun, measured, and cut the thread of every life, mortal and divine, are still. They are staring at their own empty fingers, their purpose concluded. The thread of Zeus, a brilliant cord of woven lightning, has not been cut. It has simply ended. It unraveled into nothing. The vision snaps back with the force of a physical blow. Lyra is on the floor of her sanctuary, gasping, her body drenched in a cold sweat that has nothing to do with the temperature of the room. The deep hum fades, leaving a silence that is heavier, more absolute than any she has ever known. It is the silence of a world without its gods. The afterimage is burned into her mind, the empty throne, the fading light of her patron, the still hands of the fates. She has seen the ultimate secret, the one truth that underpins all others. The gods are not eternal. Olympus will fall. It is not a possibility, not a warning. It is a memory of the future, and she understands, with a chilling certainty that settles deep in her bones, that Apollo showed this to her. Why? As a final cruel joke, a moment of divine weakness, a cry into the void that only his chosen vessel could hear? Or was it a test, a truth so vast, so dangerous, that the mere act of possessing it is a trial? The weight in her soul is no longer the sum of a village's sorrows. It is the weight of a dying cosmos. She is 25, a mortal woman of flesh and bone, and she holds the death of gods in her mind. The silence in her sanctuary screams with the pressure of this forbidden knowledge. To speak it would be to challenge the very foundations of the world. To keep it secret would be to let the world live a lie. The God of truth has given her the one truth that must never be told. Lyra remains on the cold stone, her body trembling not from the vision, but from its chilling, silent aftermath. The world she knew has been replaced by a fragile imitation, a stage play where everyone is acting their parts, unaware that the theater itself is condemned. It is into this profound emptiness that the god arrives. There is no grand entrance, no chariot of fire. His arrival is far more insidious. First, the light changes. The dim, grey illumination of her sanctuary, filtered through a high, narrow window, is replaced by a light of impossible quality. It is pure, white, and shadowless, seeming to emanate from the very stone and air itself. It is a sterile, clinical light that reveals every crack in the walls, every grain of dust on the floor, and every fear in her heart. Then, the silence deepens, the faint whisper of the wind outside, the distant cry of a night bird. It all ceases. The world outside her sanctuary has been muted. There is nothing but her, the cold light, and the single, unwavering musical note that vibrates not in her ears, but directly in the bones of her skull. He is here, child of dust, the voice says, and it is not a sound. It is a thought, placed directly into her mind, as intimate as her own consciousness and as alien as the stars. The voice is beautiful, melodic, perfect hand, utterly devoid of warmth. It is the voice of the sun, which gives life, but can also scorch the earth to desert. You have seen a thing not meant for mortal eyes. You have touched the void, looked into the unraveling. It is a fever of the mind, a glimpse of the chaos that lies beyond the order I have made. Such knowledge is a poison to creatures like you. It will curdle your thoughts and turn your heart to ash. Lyra remains motionless, her eyes squeezed shut, though it offers no defense. She feels his presence, like a physical weight, a pressure on her soul that is far greater than the vision itself. The vision was a horror, but it was impersonal. This is a god, her god, speaking directly to her, and she feels like a microbe under the focus of a burning glass. I grant you a mercy. The voice continues, its tone smooth and reasonable, the voice of a physician prescribing a bitter medicine. I offer you the gift of forgetting. Let it wash away. Be the vessel for the small truths, the truths your people can bear. Speak of harvests and fevers, of loves lost and found. These are the threads of their lives. The great tapestry is not for you to see or to speak of. To speak of the end is to invite it. Silence is your shield. Silence is your sanctuary. Silence, the word echoes in the hollow spaces of her mind. He is asking her to deny the most profound truth she has ever witnessed. He is asking her to become a liar in the service of the God of truth. The irony is so vast, so bitter, it almost makes her want to laugh, a hysterical, mad sound that would surely shatter the oppressive stillness. Her life has been a torment of truth. She has borne the weight of every small tragedy, every coming sorrow. It was a curse, but it was real. Her suffering had meaning because it was tied to what was true. To ignore this ultimate truth now would make a mockery of every painful vision she has ever endured. It would mean her entire life, her entire curse, was pointless. Fear, cold and sharp, pierces through her thoughts. This is Apollo, the smiter, the god who flayed Marsyas alive for daring to challenge him in music, the god who slaughtered Niobe's 14 children because she boasted of them. She knows his anger, she knows his pride. She is a mortal, a speck of dust, arguing in her own head with the sun dot, as if sensing her hesitation, her internal rebellion. The quality of the light shifts, it intensifies, becoming painfully bright. The single musical note sharpens, grating on her very nerves. You think, your purpose is to speak, the voice says, the melody now gone, replaced by a cold, cutting edge. You are a vessel, a cup. You hold what I pour into you. You do not question the taste. Do you truly believe you have a choice? The threat is not spoken, but shown. He gives her a fleeting, final vision. She sees herself, wandering the roads, her eyes open but seeing nothing. She tries to speak of the falling gods, of the empty throne. But what comes from her mouth is gibberish, the chirping of birds, the barking of dogs, the nonsense babble of a madwoman. The villagers throw stones at her, not out of malice, but out of fear. She sees herself alone, trapped inside her own mind, holding the greatest truth in the world, but utterly unable to communicate it. A prophet whose prophecies are meaningless noise, a prison of perfect, incommunicable knowledge. This is his threat, not death, not pain, but utter, absolute isolation. He will not destroy her, he will simply edit her. He will make her a living monument to the folly of defying him. And in that moment of absolute terror, something shifts inside Lyra. The fear does not vanish, but a cold, hard resolve forms in its crucible. What is the difference between the silence he demands and the babbling fate he threatens her with? Both are a living death. Both are a lie. If she is to be a prisoner, she will be a prisoner for speaking the truth, not for hiding from it. He showed her, for whatever reason, arrogance, carelessness, a test. He made her a witness, and a witness has a duty. She does not speak, she does not move, but in the deepest part of her soul, she makes her choice. She will not be his cup. She will be a voice, her voice, even if it is the last sound she ever makes. The god feels it. The shift in her resolve, the hardening of her will. The intense light recedes, the painful note vanishes. The voice speaks one last time, and it is no longer a command or a threat. It is a sentence, delivered with the cold finality of a closing tomb. So be it. The silence that returns is different. It is no longer pregnant with a divine presence. It is truly empty. He is gone, and Lyra is left alone in the grey light of her sanctuary, with the truth burning on her tongue and the knowledge of her own impending doom settling around her like a shroud. She has made her choice. Now, she must face the consequences. Lyra does not wait for the god to reconsider. A sentence has been passed, and she will meet it on her own terms. With a stillness that feels ancient, she rises from the stone floor. Her limbs are heavy, her body aches from the divine pressure it has endured, but her steps are steady. She pushes open the heavy wooden door of her sanctuary and walks out into the world, leaving the cold, lonely chamber behind forever. She follows the winding path down the mountainside, a path her feet know better than her own name. It leads to the small, dusty village that has been the boundary of her world, the place of her purpose and her isolation. As she enters the modest agora, the small collection of stalls and homes built around a central well, people stop and turn. The murmuring begins. It is the seer, come down from her rock. Someone's cow must be missing. Someone's child must be ill. They gather a loose circle of anxious, hopeful faces, ready for a truth they can manage. Lyra stops in the center. By the well, the midday sun beats down, the light of her god, her patron, her judge. She looks at the faces around her, the blacksmith, the weaver, the old woman who sells olives, the children hiding behind their mother's tunics. For years, she has carried their small futures. Now, she will give them the only truth that truly matters. She takes a breath, and the murmuring stops. They lean in, waiting. The gods are dying, she says. Her voice is not loud, but it cuts through the air with the clarity of a shattered crystal. I have seen the halls of Olympus, draped in frost and shadow. I have seen the throne of Zeus, empty and broken. The fates have laid down their needles. The thread of their reign has unraveled into nothing. There is a moment of stunned, absolute silence. The blacksmith's mouth hangs open. The old woman makes a sign with her hand to ward off evil. This is not the prophecy they came for. This is not a truth. This is blasphemy. This is madness. She is cursed, someone whispers, and the whisper spreads like fire through dry grass. The gods have broken her mind. They begin to back away, pulling their children close. They look at her not with awe, but with horrified pity. She is no longer their seer. She is a pariah, an object of terror. Lyra stands her ground, her heart breaking not from their rejection, but from their unshakable belief in a lie. She opens her mouth to speak again, to make them understand, but no words come. Instead, the sun overhead, the eye of Apollo, seems to intensify. The light focuses, narrowing into a brilliant, searing beam that falls only upon her. It is not warm. It is a white-hot fire that washes all color from the world. She raises a hand to shield her face, but it is useless. The light pours into her, a holy fire intent on purification. It burns through her eyes, searing the nerves, boiling the very fluid, wiping away the world of shape and shadow. She lets out a single, piercing scream, a sound of pure physical agony, and collapses to her knees. And then, it is over. The world is gone. There is only darkness, a thick, complete, and total night. But she is not alone in it. As the agony in her eyes subsides to a dull, throbbing ache, the visions return. But not the small ones, not the slivers of glass. He has taken her sight, but left her the sight. In the endless, starless night of her own mind, the cosmos begins to burn. She sees it all, constantly, a relentless, looping panorama of cosmic death. The fading light of Apollo, the crumbling black frost on the marble of Olympus, the still hands of the fates. This is her new world. He has answered her defiance with a curse of perfect, poetic cruelty. He has trapped her in the very truth she championed, she wanted to see. Now, it is all she will ever see. The villagers are gone. They fled from the terrifying miracle, the divine punishment enacted in their square. Lyra is left alone, a blind woman on her knees, whispering to the dying gods that only she can see. Her mortal defiance did not sway a god's wrath. It only refined it into a masterpiece of eternal suffering. The sound of footsteps and murmurs fades into a low, hollow wind. The tone becomes more poetic and reflective. The sun sets, but for Lyra there is no change. Her night is now eternal, and in the silence left behind by her terrible prophecy, a question begins to linger in the air, unasked but deeply felt. If the gods, the brilliant, thundering Olympians, could fade, what does that say about power? Perhaps it is not as absolute as they pretend. Perhaps their light, as bright as it is, has only blinded the world to other, older things, in the shadows of their magnificent temples, in the deep, quiet places of the earth. Other powers sleep, powers defeated, but not destroyed. Titans, bound in the abyss, whose rage is as patient as stone. Their pacts were broken, their thrones usurped, but their whispers can still travel through the dark, like cracks spreading through the foundations of a great mountain. They seek the ambitious, the resentful, the mortals who dream of overthrowing their own gods. They offer a different kind of power, a darker glory. For what is a king's ambition, if not a small echo of a titan's own ancient, defiant pride? The world is full of forgotten oaths and sleeping giants, waiting for a mortal foolish enough to listen. We leave the blind seer to her endless, wandering night, and travel now, not through space, but through the currents of power that underpin the mortal world. We arrive in a place of stone and shadow, the heart of a kingdom that clings to the edge of the Aegean like a stubborn limpet on a rock. This is the realm of King Alastor, and this is his throne room. But there is no court here tonight. There is only the king, a single flickering oil lamp, and the oppressive weight of a crown that feels heavier with each passing year. Alastor is not a king of grand feasts and boisterous hunts. His face is sharp, his eyes narrowed from long hours, spent reading scrolls, his hands stained with the ink of maps and treaties. His kingdom is small, its soil thin, its harbors buffeted by unpredictable winds. To his people, he is a just and wise ruler, but in the silence of his own mind, he is a man besieged. Every drought, he must offer agonizing sacrifices to Demeter, whose moods are as fickle as the seasons. Every storm that sinks one of his trading ships is a reminder of Poseidon's casual, destructive power. He is not a king. He is a tenant, farmer, paying tribute to landlords who live on a mountain and answer to no one. His frustration is a cold, hard knot in his gut. He has studied philosophy, strategy, the movements of the stars. He believes in order, in logic, in cause and effect, and yet he rules in a world governed by divine impulse, by the chaotic whims of beings who demand worship but offer no consistency, no justice, only power. He feels trapped, a brilliant mind in a gilded cage, and this feeling, this quiet resentment, is a fertile ground for strange seeds to grow. It begins subtly, so subtly, he does not even notice it at first. Late one night, while tracing the trade routes of a rival nation on a map, a thought slides into his mind, smooth as oiled silk. The lines of power are not drawn on parchment, they are drawn across the heavens. Redraw the heavens, and you redraw the world. He blinks, startled. The thought is elegant, profound, and it does not feel like his own. He dismisses it as a product of a tired mind, a poetic fancy. But the whispers continue. They are not a voice, not a sound. They are ideas, blooming in the quiet soil of his ambition. While studying the histories of the great wars, he reads of the Titanomachi, the cosmic battle where Zeus and his siblings overthrew their father, Cronus, and the Titan gods. The official histories, written by poets eager for Olympian favor, portray it as a glorious victory of light over darkness, of order over chaos. But as he reads, a new thought surfaces. History is a story told by the victors. The Titans were not chaos. They were the architects of the world. They were order, ancient and profound. What the Olympians brought was not order, but noise. He starts seeking out older texts, fragmented scrolls, lines of poetry so ancient they are considered heretical. And in these dusty, forgotten words, a name begins to resonate. Kuz, a name he barely knows. A Titan, yes, one of the firstborn sons of Uranus and Gaia, but not one of the famous ones. Not Cronus who ruled, or Oceanus who girdled the world, or Atlas who holds up the sky. Kuz was different. He was the Titan of intellect, of knowledge. His domain was the celestial axis, the pole around which the heavens pivot. He was, in his essence, the god of rational inquiry. And after the war, like his brothers, he was cast down into the eternal darkness of Tartarus, bound and forgotten. Irony is not lost on Alastor. The new gods, the Olympians, had a grandfather named Kuz. Apollo, the very god of prophecy and light Lyra served, was his grandson through the Titaness Leto. The Olympians had buried their own lineage, erased the memory of the very powers that sired them. The whispers in his mind grow clearer now, more focused. They speak to his intellect, not his greed. They do not promise him riches or endless life. They promise him something far more seductive, a world that makes sense. Their power is a storm. The voice in his mind explains its logic as cold and clear as starlight. It is loud and bright and violent. But a storm has no purpose. It merely happens. My power is the axis. It is silent. It is invisible. But everything revolves around it. Let me be your axis, King Alas. and your kingdom will become the center of a new world. A world governed by thought, not temper. Alastor stands up from his great stone chair, his heart pounding. This is madness. This is treason against the gods themselves. To even entertain these thoughts is to risk a punishment beyond imagination. And yet, the logic is undeniable. The promise is intoxicating. To be free from the divine lottery of droughts and storms. To build a kingdom on a foundation of certainty. To be a true king, not a celestial servant. He walks to the high, arched window of his throne room and looks out into the night. The stars are a chaotic scatter of silver, beautiful but meaningless. He thinks of Kuz, the god of the celestial pole, the silent, invisible point of order around which all this chaos turns. For the first time, he feels a sense of hope, a dark and dangerous hope. The whispers have done their work. They have shown him the bars of his cage. Now, they are offering him the key. He turns from the window and speaks to the empty room. His voice is quiet, but it carries the weight of a decision that could unmake the world. How? He asks the silence. And for the first time, the silence answers back. The king's question, how, hangs in the silent firelit room for a long moment, a thread cast into an infinite abyss. When the answer comes, it is not a whisper, but a blueprint, laid out in the architecture of his own mind with cold, crystalline precision. The voice of Kuz, the forgotten titan, instructs him. There is to be no blood, no messy sacrifice. Such things are the clumsy tools of the Olympians, theatrical displays for the fearful masses. A pact with the titan of intellect would be a transaction of a different order. It would be an alignment of will, a recalibration of reality itself. First, Alastor was to extinguish all light in the room, save for a single candle, representing the false, flickering light of Zeus's reign. Then, he was to take stones from the very foundation of his castle, representing the bedrock of his kingdom, and arrange them on the floor, not in a circle of magic, but in a straight line, pointing north, towards the celestial pole, the true, unseen axis of the heavens. Finally, he was to take a silver bowl, fill it with water and black ink, creating a surface of pure, starless night. Into this void, he would speak his oath. For 3 days, Alastor made his preparations. He sent his guards away under the pretense of wanting solitude for matters of state. He procured the ink, the bowl, and with his own hands, prized the heavy, damp stones from the deep foundations of his keep. His every action was deliberate, a ritual in itself. The fear was still there, a cold snake in his belly, but it was overshadowed by a thrilling, razor-sharp sense of purpose. He was no longer just a king reacting to the whims of fate. He was an architect, preparing to draw a new design for the world. On the third night, when the moon was hidden and the sky was a blanket of impenetrable cloud, he began. He sealed the doors to the great hall, the chamber of his throne. One by one, he extinguished the torches and the oil lamps, until the only light came from the fireplace and a single, tall candle burning beside his throne. This, the voice told him, was Olympus, a single, arrogant flame, casting long, dancing shadows of chaos. He took a silver snuffer, and with a steady hand, he put it out. The room plunged into near-total darkness, the only illumination now the deep, pulsing red of the embers in the hearth. Next, the stones. He laid them on the cold floor, one after another, creating a perfect, unwavering line aimed at the unseen north. This was the new foundation, a path of reason, of stability, an axis upon which a new order could be built. Finally, he placed the silver bowl at the end of the line of stones. He poured in the water, and then the ink, swirling it until the surface became a perfect, miniature void, a circle of absolute night that seemed to drink the faint red light from the fireplace. He knelt before it, his face reflected as a faint, ghostly mask on the dark surface. The room grew cold, a deep, penetrating chill that had nothing to do with the night air. The pressure in his mind intensified, the hum growing into a crushing weight, as if the mountain itself were resting on his skull. He could feel the sheer, unimaginable pressure of Tartarus, the abyss where the Titan was chained. Speak. The voice commanded, no longer a whisper, but a chorus of immense, grinding power. Pledge the anchor, and I shall give you the chain. Alastor stared into the black water, his own reflection staring back, and he spoke the oath. His voice was hoarse, but it did not tremble. I, Alastor, king of this domain, pledge my will and the will of my people. I offer my kingdom as the fulcrum, the physical anchor for your return. I renounce the chaotic gods of Olympus and swear allegiance to the true order, the silence of the Axis. My mind is your vessel, my kingdom is your hand in this world, he finished, and the pressure became immense, the air growing so thick and heavy he could barely breathe. The black water in the bowl began to ripple, though nothing had touched it. The oath is heard. The voice of Kuz thundered through his mind. It is accepted. You have anchored me to the world of light. In return, I grant you what is mine, not brute strength, not cheap tricks of magic. I grant you sight. You will see the patterns behind the chaos. You will know your enemy's thoughts. Before they do, you will see the currents of time, the flow of cause and effect. While they pray to the storm, you will command the winds. Your mind is now the true north. Follow it, and you will be king of more than just this rock. You will be a king of what is to come. As the last word echoed in his mind, Alastair cried out, a sharp intake of breath, a feeling like 2 needles of ice had been plunged into his eyes. He squeezed them shut, and when he opened them again, he looked down into the bowl. His reflection was changed. His eyes, once a simple brown, now held a new light. Deep within the pupils, like distant, frozen stars, were 2 pinpricks of cold, silver light. It was the seal of the pact, the brand of the Titan dot. Slowly, the pressure in the room receded, the deep chill faded, and the red glow of the embers seemed warm again. But the coldness inside Alastair remained. He felt a surge of power so vast, so profound, it was intoxicating. In his mind's eye, he could already see it, the secret ambitions of the neighboring king, the hidden flaw in a trade agreement, the precise moment to move his ships to avoid a storm that was not yet even a cloud. The knowledge flowed into him, a cool, clear river dot. He had done it. He had forged an alliance with a power older than his gods. He was powerful. He was free. And as he stood alone in his dark, silent throne room, a king reborn, he felt for the first time the chilling, absolute loneliness of a traitor who has no one to turn to but the shadows he has sworn his soul to. The pact is sealed, and the world begins to bend to Alastair's will. The change is not instantaneous, not a sudden upheaval. It is a slow, inexorable turning, like a great ship coming onto a new course. The whispers of Kuz are no longer whispers. They are a constant stream of pure, strategic insight. Alastair sees the world as a grand chessboard, and for the first time, he understands the rules that govern the movement of every piece. His kingdom flourishes in this new, silent light of reason. When a blight threatens the eastern fields, Alastair orders the crops harvested a month early, saving them from ruin, while his neighbors watch their own fields wither. When pirates plan a raid on his coast, he knows their course before their ships have even left port, and his small navy ambushes them in a narrow strait, capturing their ships and their gold. He negotiates trade deals with such uncanny foresight that his kingdom's treasury overflows. His neighbors look on in baffled admiration, attributing his success to divine favor, and in their temples they offer thanks to the very gods Alastair is plotting to overthrow. The irony is a private, bitter vintage that the king savors alone in the long nights. He changes to the worried, besieged intellectual is gone, replaced by a figure of cold, unshakable authority. His commands are quiet, precise, and always correct. His counselors and generals look at him with awe, but also with a growing unease. They no longer see the man they knew. They see the king, a being whose gaze seems to look through them, at the patterns of the world beyond. The 2 silver specks of light in his eyes are like chips of ice, a constant, chilling reminder of the cold, ancient power he serves. After a year of this silent, inexorable growth, Kuz reveals the final stage of the plan. It is as elegant as it is audacious. They would not attack Olympus with an army. They would unplug it from its power source. Kuz explains that the Olympians' power is chaotic, drawn from the wild emotional worship of mortals and the raw energies of the world, but it all flows through a focal point, a sort of spiritual axis. The plan is to create a counterfocal point, a metaphysical false axis on Earth. At the moment of the winter solstice, the darkest day of the year, is to perform a ritual on the highest peak of his kingdom. This ritual would create a beacon, a psychic needle that would disrupt the flow of power to Olympus, scrambling their senses, grounding their lightning, and plunging the divine realm into a state of confusion. In that moment of weakness, Kuz, from the depths of Tartarus, could focus his immense will on the weakened bars of his prison. It was a coup d'etat on a cosmic scale. The tension in Alastair's soul, long dormant under the cold blanket of logic, returns. This is no longer a game of strategy and trade. This is a direct assault on the heavens. But he has come too far to turn back, he agrees. As he makes his final, secret preparations, gathering the strange minerals and esoteric components for the ritual beacon, the sky begins to change. The Olympians, blind to the specifics of his plan, are not entirely numb. They can feel the pressure building in the mortal realm, a discordant note in the symphony of their power. One afternoon, as Alastair oversees the construction of the ritual apparatus, he looks up to see a single, monstrous cloud hanging directly over his capital. It is a perfect, anvil-shaped thunderhead, bruised purple and black, in a sky that is otherwise perfectly clear. Golden lightning, the unmistakable signature of Zeus, crackles silently within it. No rain falls, no thunder sounds. It is not a storm. It is a stare. It is the unblinking eye of the king of the gods, and it is looking directly at him. The whispers of coups are a cool, rational bomb in his mind. It is a display, nothing more. He feels the symptom, but does not know the disease. His power is theatrical. Proceed. The logic is sound. Alastair tries to hold on to the logic. He has calculated every variable, planned for every contingency. But Zeus is not a variable. He is a god. For the first time, the king feels a tremor of true, mortal fear. A fear that no amount of logic can soothe. The night of the winter solstice arrives. It is a cold, windless night. The stars unnaturally bright. Alastair and a few of his most trusted men stand on the flattened peak of Mount Sleepless, the beacon, a complex array of polished obsidian, silver wiring, and a great, dark crystal at its heart ready. The world is silent, holding its breath, as the first faint hint of dawn touches the eastern horizon. The time has come. Alastair places his hands on the crystal. It is time to complete the circuit, to throw the switch on the heavens. At that exact moment, a bolt of lightning, thicker and brighter than anything he has ever imagined, falls from the clear, starry sky. It does not strike the beacon. It strikes the peak 50 feet away, vaporizing a great shard of the mountainside. The sound is not thunder. It is the sound of reality tearing apart. The light is absolute, a flash that turns the world to a white, skeletal negative. The raw, untamed, immeasurable power of it washes over Alastair, blowing his hair back, scorching the air in his lungs. In that single, blinding moment, all of Q's cold, elegant logic evaporates like mist in a furnace. The Titan's promises of a new world order are incinerated by the primal, terrifying certainty of Zeus's wrath. Alastair sees his future not as a king of a new age, but as a blackened smear on a mountainside. He sees his flourishing kingdom reduced to a smoking crater. He sees himself enduring an eternity of torment that would make Prometheus's suffering look like a moment's discomfort. Hold your nerve. The voice of Q's screams in his mind, a voice suddenly filled with desperate urgency. The logic holds. This is his final, empty threat. But Alastair is no longer a creature of logic. He is a mortal man, staring into the face of his own annihilation. Fear, pure and absolute, conquers all. He rips his hands from the crystal. He looks up at the sky, at the place where the lightning originated, and he screams a name. Not Q's, Zeus. He cries, his voice a pathetic, pleading shriek. Forgive me. It was not my will. I was deceived. And with a desperate, final act of self-preservation, he takes a heavy iron mallet, left for the final assembly, and brings it down with all his strength onto the heart of the beacon. The great dark crystal shatters with a sound like a dying scream, silencing the whispers in his head forever. He has made his choice. At the dawn of his victory, he has betrayed the ancient ally who gave him everything. The crystal lies in glittering, useless shards on the frozen mountaintop. The whispers of the Titan are gone, replaced by the screaming silence of Alastair's own thoughts. He stands panting in the thin, cold air of the dawn, his knuckles white. On the handle of the iron mallet, his gaze is fixed on the sky, a desperate, pleading stare, waiting for a sign of forgiveness, a signal that his cowardly last-minute betrayal was accepted. He has chosen the Olympians. He has chosen Zeus. Surely, that must count for something. The terrifying golden-eyed storm cloud is gone. The sky is a placid, indifferent blue. The sun continues its ascent, flooding the landscape with gentle, golden light. For a wild, hopeful moment, Alastor thinks he is saved. He thinks his desperate plea was heard. His choice was honored. He has averted disaster. He is a fool. A shadow falls over him, and it is not the shadow of a cloud. The light itself seems to bend around a certain point in the sky. A figure descends, not with a crash of thunder, but with the silent, effortless grace of a falling hawk. It is Hermes, the messenger of the gods, his winged sandals beating a silent rhythm against the air. He lands softly on the peak, his expression, not of anger, but of something far worse, bored disappointment. King Alastor, Hermes says, and his voice is casual, as if discussing the weather. Lord Zeus has heard your appeal. A pathetic surge of hope floods Alastor's heart. I was deceived, he blurts out, the words tumbling over each other. A power from the pit. It twisted my mind. I saw the truth at the last moment. I chose loyalty. I chose Lord Zeus. Hermes gives a small, thin smile. It does not reach his eyes. Oh, he knows who you chose. He is the king of the gods, after all. He sees everything. He saw your ambition. He saw you forge a pact with his grandfather. He saw you build a weapon to blind the heavens. And he saw you, at the final moment, break your sacred oath out of pure, simple fear. Lord Zeus is not in the habit of rewarding those who offer him loyalty only when it is the least dangerous option. The cold dread returns, colder than ever. Before then, what is my punishment? Alastor whispers. Punishment? Hermes tilts his head, a look of mock consideration on his face. No, this is not a punishment. This is an administrative decision, a matter of celestial tidiness. You see, you have made a pact with a prisoner of Tartarus. An oath was sworn. Such things have power. They create a connection, a bond that cannot easily be undone. Smashing a crystal doesn't change that. Zeus has simply decided to honor the bond you created. Before Alastor can process what this means, Hermes raises a hand. The ground beneath the king's feet does not crumble or shake. It simply ceases to be. The world dissolves. The mountain, the sky, the sun, the very air itself, it all vanishes. Alastor is falling, but there is no wind, no sense of motion. He is adrift in a place without dimension. It is not darkness, for darkness is the absence of light. This is the absence of everything, a perfect, featureless, soundless, starless void. His body feels like it is dissolving, his thoughts into the infinite nothing. He screams, but no sound comes out. He tries to see, but there is nothing to see. He is utterly, completely alone, and then he realizes he is not. He cannot see it, he cannot hear it, but he can feel it, a presence, a consciousness, vast, ancient, and filled with a cold, silent, intellectual rage that is more terrifying than any physical threat. It is the mind of Zeus, the Titan, freed from the physical chains of Tartarus, but now bound with Alastor in this conceptual prison. Zeus, in an act of breathtaking, ironic cruelty, has given both of them exactly what they deserve. He has bound the oathbreaker to the oath he broke. Alastor's eternity will be this, floating in an endless, silent void, with nothing for company but the pure, focused, undying hatred of the being he betrayed at the very brink of his triumph. The whispers are gone, but the presence is forever. He learns, in that first moment of an unending damnation, that the curse was not in breaking the pact. The curse was the pact itself. The imagined sound of the voided deep, unending silence takes over. The tone becomes ethereal and searching. In the perfect, starless nothing of their shared prison, there is no light, no form, no time. There is only the silent scream of a mortal soul, and the cold, patient fury of a titan. It is an end, the end of a king's ambition. And yet, even in a void, a thought can exist, a story, a single, thin, luminous thing, like a strand of silk, pulled from a weaver's loom. What is truly more dangerous to a god? A king's armies, challenging their power with swords and spears, or an artist's hands, challenging their authority with a simple, woven truth. A grand conspiracy to overthrow the heavens can be shattered with a single bolt of lightning. But a secret, once revealed, once woven into a tapestry for all to see, that is a different kind of weapon. It does not attack the gods' power, but their legitimacy. It is a quiet, insidious rebellion, one that can unravel their divine narratives, thread by thread, until nothing is left but the naked, ugly truth. And for that crime, there is a special kind of punishment, reserved not for traitors, but for creators. From the silent, shared damnation of a king and a titan, our story now finds its focus in a single, luminous thread. We follow it from the darkness into a small, quiet room in the weaving city of Hippipa, in the heart of Lydia. The air here is warm and smells of lanolin, dry dust, and the sharp, earthy scent of madder root and indigo dyes. This room is a universe of color. Thousands of spools of thread line the walls, a silent library of every hue imaginable, from the deepest Tyrian purple to the pale gold of a winter sunrise. And in the center of it all, seated before a large, imposing loom, is a woman named Malia. To the world, she is no one of importance, a weaver of uncommon skill, yes, but quiet, reclusive, content to sell her simple, unadorned fabrics at the local market. She is known only as the sister of the infamous Arachne, and that name, that story, hangs in the air of this room like a permanent, chilling draft. Everyone in Lydia knew the story of Arachne, a weaver of such breathtaking talent that nymphs were said to creep from the forests to watch her work. But her pride was as great as her skill. She boasted that her ability rivaled that of Athena herself, the goddess of wisdom and weaving, the patron of all craft. Athena, disguised as an old woman, warned her to be humble, to know a mortal's place. Arachne laughed in her face. And so the contest was set. Athena wove a masterpiece, a grand tapestry depicting her victory over Poseidon and the majesty of the 12 Olympian gods, with the fates of foolish mortals who dared challenge the gods woven into the four corners. As a clear warning, it was magnificent, it was propaganda. Arachne, in a breathtaking act of defiance, wove a masterpiece of her own. But her tapestry depicted the gods' shames: Zeus, disguised as a bull, abducting Europa; Apollo, chasing Daphne; Poseidon, violating Medusa in Athena's own temple. It was a flawless, exquisitely beautiful catalogue of divine hypocrisy and abuse. It was the truth. Athena, enraged not by the quality for it, was perfect but by the content, tore the tapestry to shreds and struck Arachne. In her despair, Arachne hanged herself, but Athena, in a final act of cruel mercy, saved her from death, transforming her into a spider. Her and her descendants cursed to mindlessly spin and weave for all eternity. Malia remembers her sister. She remembers the vibrant, proud young woman, and she remembers the broken, terrified creature she became. That memory is the shuttle that flies back and forth in the loom of Malia's own soul. She learned the lesson Athena intended, but not in the way the goddess hoped. Malia learned that the gods feared the truth, and so she has dedicated her quiet, unassuming life to weaving it. Her work is not for contest or for sale. It is for herself. It is her secret history of the world. Hanging on the walls of her secluded workshop are the tapestries that would have her flayed alive if they were ever seen. Here is Medusa, her face not a mask of monstrous rage, but of pure, uncomprehending terror, as Poseidon's shadow falls over her on the temple floor. The cold eyes of the goddess's statue staring down, indifferent. Here is Daphne, her transformation, into a laurel tree, not a graceful escape, but an agony, her skin cracking and turning to bark, her screams silenced as leaves sprout from her open mouth. Malia does not weave the myths the bards sing. She weaves the screams that the myths conceal. Unlike the famous weavers of Athens, who spend a year creating the peplos, the grand devotional robe for the statue of Athena Parthenos, depicting the glorious battle against the giants, Malia's work is a kind of sacred blasphemy, a private, meticulous anti-peplos. Her threads do not celebrate the gods, they bear witness against them. She feels a quiet, burning compulsion to do it. It is not pride, it is not anger, it is a duty she feels to the silenced, to her sister, to every mortal and nymph who became a footnote in a god's glorious biography. Her loom is not merely a tool for craft, it is an instrument of justice, a way of creating a record that is truer than any spoken word. Today, she has finished her latest work, the Tapestry of Icarus, but she has not shown the foolish boy flying too close to the sun. She has woven the sun itself as a great, predatory eye, and the boy's melting wings as a consequence, not of his own hubris, but of the sun god's jealous whim. She snips the final thread and steps back, her face a mask of grim satisfaction. But she is not done. A new idea has taken root in her mind, a project more ambitious and more dangerous than any before it. It is not enough to document the gods' crimes one by one. she will weave them all together. She will create a single, grand tapestry, a companion piece to the one her sister wove. But this one will not just show their lusts and their deceptions. It will show the consequences. It will show the broken families, the cursed bloodlines, the eternal torments, the whole ecosystem of suffering that flows down from their shining mountain. It will be the great shame of Olympus. She turns from her finished work and approaches the loom. It stands empty, a silent frame of infinite possibility. From the thousands of spools on her wall, she begins to choose her colors. She takes a spool of thread the color of dried blood, one the color of a drowning victim's lips, one the color of a king's ambition, like tarnished silver. And finally, she selects a thread of the deepest, most absolute black. It is the color of a goddess's rage. She threads the shuttle, her movements precise and full of a terrible, artistic certainty. The first clack of the shuttle echoes in the quiet room. The work has begun. The work begins, and with it, the world outside Molly's workshop ceases to exist. The sun rises and sets, its passage marked only by the shifting angle of the dusty shafts of light that pierce the gloom of her studio. The seasons turn. A hot summer gives way to a cool, crisp autumn, but Malia does not notice. Her life is measured not in days, but in the inches of woven truth that grow upon her loom. She eats when her body screams with hunger, sleeps when her vision blurs, and her hands can no longer guide the shuttle. Her world is the thread, the tension of the warp, the steady rhythm of her own quiet defiance. She is not merely weaving images, she is weaving evidence. She is a scribe, and her ink is spun from wool and silence. Under her deft, flying fingers, the grand narrative of divine shame begins to take shape, a masterpiece of blasphemy. First, she weaves a story of light and darkness. In threads of brilliant gold and blinding white, she creates the form of Apollo, the god of truth, his face a mask of beautiful, cold possession. His light does not illuminate, it burns, and it is focused on one of his own oracles, a young woman whose eyes are being seared into lightless night. But Molly's genius is in the detail, in the threads that form the oracle's mind, behind her scorched eyes. Malia weaves a swirling cosmos of dying stars and crumbling realities, the terrible truth that God forced her to see, and then punished her for knowing. That is the story of Lyra, captured in silk. Then, with threads of iron gray and tarnished silver, she weaves the tale of a king. She shows him kneeling on a mountaintop at dawn, his face a mask of pure, mortal terror. In his eyes, she weaves two tiny, shimmering specks of cold, forgotten starlight, the brand of his secret pact. Above him, a bolt of lightning hangs in the air, a threat of unimaginable power. Below him, deep in the dark threads that form the mountain's rock, a vast, furious, and ancient face is just visible, its eyes wide with the shock of betrayal. She weaves the moment of Alastair's choice, a perfect tableau of ambition, fear, and the crushing indifference of the gods he sought to both overthrow and appease. She connects them, and others, into a single, flowing narrative. Here is Semele, wreathed in the threads of flame that were once the arms of her lover, Zeus, her mortal body turned to ash by a truth she was tricked into asking for. Here is Asclepius, the healer, struck down by a divine thunderbolt. His crime not failure, but being too successful, of loving humanity enough to challenge the finality of death. Molly's tapestry is a testament to the fact that with the Olympian gods, both defiance and devotion can lead to ruin. Their love is as dangerous as their hate. Days bleed into weeks, weeks into months. Molly grows thin. Her eyes are large and dark in a pale face, shadowed with exhaustion. Her fingers are raw, calloused, and sometimes bleed, adding a tiny, literal part of herself into the work. She speaks to no one. She is a ghost in her own home, haunting her loom. She feels the agony of her subjects as she weaves them. She feels the fire on Semele's skin, the cold dread in Alastair's gut, the burning pain in Lyra's eyes. The grief of 1,000 forgotten victims flows through her fingers, and into the threads. The room seems crowded with their silent watching ghosts. At the very center of the vast tapestry, she weaves the unifying image, the heart of her accusation. She weaves Mount Olympus, but it is not the shining palace of the bards. In Mali's vision, it is a great, beautiful, impossible flower. Its stem is made of twisted human spines. Its roots, woven in threads of deepest crimson, sink into a dark river made of mortal tears. Its petals are the purest, most brilliant gold, but they are sharp, serrated, carnivorous, and from the center of this divine, predatory bloom, the golden ichor of the gods drips down, sizzling and burning the woven ground below, turning it to barren ash. Finally, after what feels like a lifetime, she reaches the end. There is only one thread left to place. It is a single strand of the deepest black, the color of a spider's body, the color of her sister's despair. With a slow, deliberate movement, she guides the shuttle through the warp one last time. The final clack of the loom echoes in the sudden deafening silence. It is done. She snips the thread, her hand trembling with exhaustion and a terrible, exhilarating finality. She steps back from the loom, her whole body aching, and looks upon her creation. It is magnificent. It is horrifying. It is the truth. The colors are so vibrant, the details so precise, the emotions so raw that the figures seem to breathe. The tapestry is not merely a picture, it is a presence. It seems to thrum with a dark, contained power, radiating an aura of profound, sorrowful accusation. It is the most beautiful and the most dangerous thing anyone has ever made. Malia looks at it, and for the first time in a year, a faint, sad smile touches her lips. She has given a voice to the voiceless. She has created a truth that cannot be unwoven. She has finished her sister's work. She stands alone in her silent workshop, before her masterpiece of defiance, and she waits, for she knows, with an artist's unerring instinct, that a work like this does not go unseen by the gods it condemns. She knows who is coming. Malia stands before her creation, a solitary figure in a room that has become a shrine to forbidden truths. She does not have to wait long. The goddess does not arrive with a thunderclap or a brilliant flash of light. Her arrival is a subtraction. The warm, dusty air of the workshop suddenly becomes crisp, cold, and sterile. The riotous colors of the thousands of spools on the walls seem to bleach, fading to muted shades of gray. All color, all warmth, all chaos is drained from the room, leaving only 2 points of brilliant, defiant reality: the weaver and the tapestry she has made. Athena is simply there. She stands on the far side of the loom, a silent, imposing figure. She wears no armor, carries no spear. She is dressed in a simple peplus of a gray, so pure and perfectly woven, it seems to contain all the order in the universe. Her face is beautiful, but it is the terrifying, inhuman beauty of a perfectly executed mathematical equation. Her gray eyes, the color of a storm-tossed sea, are ancient, intelligent, and hold no discernible emotion. They are the eyes of a strategist, a philosopher, and an executioner. The goddess does not look at Malia. Her entire, formidable attention is fixed upon the tapestry. Her gaze moves across the woven surface with a slow, analytical precision. She sees the oracle, blinded by her own brother's light. She sees the terrified king betraying the titan. Her expression does not change, but Malia feels a subtle shift in the atmosphere. This is not the explosive rage that her sister Arachne faced. This is something far colder, far more dangerous. It is the quiet, absolute disapproval of a being for whom order is the highest virtue. And Malia's tapestry is a symphony of cosmic dissent. Athena's eyes linger on the central image, Olympus as the carnivorous flower, drinking the tears of mortals. She sees her own story reflected there too. In a small, dark corner Malia had saved for her, the face of Medusa, contorted in terror, with the reflection of Athena's own shield visible in her wide, pleading eyes. The goddess sees it all, every accusation, every thread of evidence. Finally, after an eternity of silent scrutiny, she lifts her gaze from the tapestry and fixes it on Malia. The weight of that look is immense, a pressure that could crush mountains. Why? Athena asks. Her voice is not loud. It is calm, clear, and resonant, like a perfectly struck bell. The simple question hangs in the cold air, demanding an answer. Malia does not flinch. She meets the goddess's gaze, her own eyes filled not with defiance, but with a quiet, unbreakable certainty. Because it is true, she says, her voice, barely a whisper, yet it carries all the weight of her conviction. Athena almost smiles. It is a terrifying sight, a slight, humorless curve of her lips. Truth, the goddess muses, her voice still calm, still dangerously reasonable. You have your sister's skill, mortal, perhaps even greater. Your technique is flawless, your colors are sublime, but your understanding is fatally incomplete. You believe this is truth. She gestures a perfectly manicured hand towards the tapestry. This is not truth. It is a catalogue of pain, a monument to despair. You have woven the shadow with perfect accuracy, but you have no comprehension of the light that casts it. You see the punishment, but you cannot grasp the necessity of the crime. Your art has no wisdom, it has no hope. It is, for all its beauty, an exquisitely crafted lie of omission. Malia says nothing. There is nothing left to say. She has made her statement. Now comes the sentence. My sister Arachne challenged me with her pride. Athena continues, her voice dropping, becoming even quieter, more intimate. A simple, vulgar crime. I gave her a simple, vulgar punishment. But your crime is more elegant, Malia. Your crime is one of philosophy. You seek to elevate suffering into the ultimate truth, so your punishment must also be philosophical. It must be artistic. The goddess raises her hand, not to strike, but as a conductor might, to begin a piece of music. You love to weave the stories of the grieving, the lost, the tormented. Very well. From now on, that is all you will ever do. Your skill will not be destroyed, it will be repurposed. You will have an eternity to perfect your art, an eternity to capture the texture of true despair. The floor beneath Malia's feet begins to lose its substance. The great loom, her life's companion, starts to become translucent, its hard wooden edges blurring into smoke. The threads on the wall, the spools, the very air itself, it is all dissolving, fading into a grey, misty nothingness. Malia feels a pull, a gentle but irresistible tide, drawing her down, where she whispers, as her own hands begin to grow faint. You will be my sister Persephone's new artisan. Athena says, her form still solid, a pillar of reality in a dissolving world. You will sit in the grey meadows of Asphodel, by the river of sorrow, and you will weave the burial shrouds for the shades of the dead, trapping them in the memories of their unhappy lives. You will weave the tapestries that hang in the halls of Hades and his queen, depicting the eternal punishments of the damned. Your art, which you thought was a weapon of truth, will now be a tool of the underworld. It will be the very fabric of its misery. You wished to be a witness to suffering. Now you will be its eternal architect. The great tapestry, masterpiece, the most dangerous object in the world, begins to unravel, not from the edges, but from its center. The carnivorous flower of Olympus dissolves into a puff of black dust. The figures of Lyra and Alasta, of Medusa and Icarus, fray into nothingness. The threads turn limp, lifeless, and fall to the fading floor, a pile of meaningless, colorless lint. Its truth is too volatile to be left behind. Malia gives one last look at the goddess, and in her eyes there is no longer fear or defiance. There is only a vast, weary understanding. Then she, her loom, and her workshop are gone, pulled down into the unending twilight of the underworld, leaving nothing behind. In the mortal world but an empty room and the faint, lingering smell of dust and sorrow. Malia stands before her creation, a solitary figure in a room that has become a shrine to forbidden truths. She does not have to wait long. The goddess does not arrive with a thunderclap or a brilliant flash of light. Her arrival is a subtraction. The warm, dusty air of the workshop suddenly becomes crisp, cold, and sterile. The riotous colors of the thousands of spools on the walls seem to bleach, fading to muted shades of gray. All color, all warmth, all chaos is drained from the room, leaving only 2 points of brilliant, defiant reality, the weaver and the tapestry she has made. Athena is simply there. She stands on the far side of the loom, a silent, imposing figure. She wears no armor, carries no spear. She is dressed in a simple peplus of a gray, so pure and perfectly woven it seems to contain all the order in the universe. Her face is beautiful, but it is the terrifying, inhuman beauty of a perfectly executed mathematical equation. Her gray eyes, the color of a storm-tossed sea, are ancient, intelligent, and hold no discernible emotion. They are the eyes of a strategist, a philosopher, and an executioner. The goddess does not look at Malia. Her entire formidable attention is fixed upon the tapestry. Her gaze moves across the woven surface with a slow, analytical precision. She sees the oracle, blinded by her own brother's light. She sees the terrified king betraying the Titan. Her expression does not change, but Malia feels a subtle shift in the atmosphere. This is not the explosive rage that her sister Arachne faced. This is something far colder, far more dangerous. It is the quiet, absolute disapproval of a being for whom order is the highest virtue. And Malia's tapestry is a symphony of cosmic dissent. Athena's eyes linger on the central image, Olympus as the carnivorous flower, drinking the tears of mortals. She sees her own story reflected there too. In a small dark corner Malia had saved for her, the face of Medusa, contorted in terror, with the reflection of Athena's own shield visible in her wide, pleading eyes. The goddess sees it all, every accusation, every thread of evidence. Finally, after an eternity of silent scrutiny, she lifts her gaze from the tapestry and fixes it on Malia. The weight of that look is immense, a pressure that could crush mountains. Why? Athena asks. Her voice is not loud. It is calm, clear, and resonant, like a perfectly struck bell. The simple question hangs in the cold air, demanding an answer. Malia does not flinch. She meets the goddess's gaze, her own eyes filled not with defiance, but with a quiet, unbreakable certainty. Because it is true, she says, her voice barely a whisper, yet it carries all the weight of her conviction. Athena almost smiles. It is a terrifying sight, a slight, humorless curve of her lips. Truth, the goddess muses, her voice still calm, still dangerously reasonable. You have your sister's skill, mortal, perhaps even greater. Your technique is flawless, your colors are sublime, but your understanding is fatally incomplete. You believe this is truth. She gestures a perfectly manicured hand towards the tapestry. This is not truth. It is a catalogue of pain, a monument to despair. You have woven the shadow with perfect accuracy, but you have no comprehension of the light that casts it. You see the punishment, but you cannot grasp the necessity of the crime. Your art has no wisdom. It has no hope. It is, for all its beauty, an exquisitely crafted lie of omission. Malia says nothing. There is nothing left to say. She has made her statement. Now comes the sentence. My sister, Arachne, challenged me with her pride. Athena continues, her voice dropping, becoming even quieter, more intimate. A simple, vulgar crime. I gave her a simple, vulgar punishment. But your crime is more elegant, Malia. Your crime is one of philosophy. You seek to elevate suffering into the ultimate truth. So your punishment must also be philosophical. It must be artistic. The goddess raises her hand, not to strike, but as a conductor might, to begin a piece of music. You love to weave the stories of the grieving, the lost, the tormented. Very well. From now on, that is all you will ever do. Your skill will not be destroyed. It will be repurposed. You will have an eternity to perfect your art, an eternity to capture the texture of true despair. The floor beneath Malia's feet begins to lose its substance. The great loom, her life's companion, starts to become translucent, its hard wooden edges blurring into smoke. The threads on the wall, the spools, the very air itself, it is all dissolving, fading into a grey, misty nothingness. Malia feels a pull, a gentle but irresistible tide, drawing her down where she whispers, as her own hands begin to grow faint. You will be my sister, Persephone's new artisan. Athena says, her form still solid, a pillar of reality in a world. You will sit in the grey meadows of asphodel by the river of sorrow, and you will weave the burial shrouds for the shades of the dead, trapping them in the memories of their unhappy lives. You will weave the tapestries that hang in the halls of Hades and his queen, depicting the eternal punishments of the damned. Your art, which you thought was a weapon of truth, will now be a tool of the underworld. It will be the very fabric of its misery. You wished to be a witness to suffering. Now, you will be its eternal architect. The great tapestry, masterpiece, the most dangerous object in the world, begins to unravel, not from the edges, but from its center. The carnivorous flower of Olympus dissolves into a puff of black dust. The figures of Lyra and Alastor, of Medusa and Icarus, fray into nothingness. The threads turn limp, lifeless, and fall to the fading floor, a pile of meaningless, colorless lint. Its truth is too volatile to be left behind. Malia gives one last look at the goddess, and in her eyes, there is no longer fear or defiance. There is only a vast, weary understanding. Then she, her loom, and her workshop are gone, pulled down into the unending twilight of the underworld, leaving nothing behind. In the mortal world but an empty room and the faint, lingering smell of dust and sorrow. Here is where the story ends, not with a bang, but with a soft, rhythmic, and eternal task. We are in the asphodel meadows, the part of the underworld reserved for the souls who were neither virtuous nor wicked, the unremarkable, the forgotten, the vast, silent majority of the dead. There is no sun here, no moon, only a perpetual, shadowless grey twilight that stretches in every direction. The ground is covered in a pale, spectral carpet of asphodel flowers, which rustle with no wind. And here, in the midst of this grey, silent ocean of souls, is Malia. She sits at her loom. It is no longer the warm, familiar wooden frame from her workshop. This loom is made of a dark, cold iron, forged in the fires of Hades, its surface cool and unyielding. It stands as a stark, black skeleton in the grey landscape. And Malia herself is changed. She is paler, translucent, her form flickering, slightly, as if she is becoming a ghost herself. The fire of her conviction, the quiet defiance that burned in her eyes, has been extinguished. Now, they are as grey and empty as the meadows around her. Her hands, once raw with the passion of her work, move with a mechanical, flawless grace. They are no longer guided by an artist's soul, but by the cold imperative of her curse. And the threads she uses are no longer spun from wool. She gathers her materials from the air itself. As the listless, drifting shades of the dead float past, she reaches out. From one, she pulls a long, shimmering grey filament, the memory of a life of quiet disappointment. From another, a thin, brittle thread of a promise broken. From a third, she gathers a misty, pale blue fibre, the last gasping breath of a drowning sailor. She takes their sorrows, their regrets, their fading moments of pain and joy, and spins them between her fingers into the threads of her new art. Right now, she is weaving a burial shroud for a shade hovering nearby, the ghost of a man who was once a king's cartographer. But the shroud does not show grand maps of kingdoms. Over and over, in an endless, repeating pattern, Malia weaves the image of the man on a hillside, trying to fold a single, large map against a wind that will never stop blowing. It is the image of his life's most frustrating, insignificant, and defining failure. The shroud will be his eternal identity. Her art is no longer a revelation. It is a cage. She does not look up. She does not feel. She does not think. The creative fire that made her challenge a goddess has been repurposed into the pilot light of a furnace that fuels this hopeless realm. Athena's punishment was absolute in its perfection. She did not kill the artist. She killed the art, while leaving the artist's hands to endlessly perform its empty rituals. Malia has become like her sister, Arachne, after all, a creature of mindless, compulsive creation, one trapped in the body of a spider, the other trapped in the ghost of her own humanity. Sometimes, in the distance, she can sense the presence of her new masters, the dark, brooding majesty of Hades, the melancholic beauty of Persephone. They are her patrons now. Her work adorns their bleak halls, decorates their joyless thrones. She is their greatest artisan, the poet laureate of despair. They never speak. To her, they have no need to. She is a function, a part of the landscape, as permanent and as silent as the river Styx. Her curse is the final answer to our question: can creativity defy divine punishment? No, for divine punishment is the more patient, more absolute artist. It can take the brightest, most defiant creation, and weave it into the very fabric of its own grim design. Malia, the weaver of forbidden truths, has now become the weaver of eternal sorrows. Her punishment is to create beauty that only serves to deepen the despair of hell. And so she sits, and so she weaves, as the silent grey souls drift by, as the grey flowers stir in a wind that isn't there. Her hands fly back and forth, the shuttle moves, the threads intertwine, and the only sound in the asphodel meadows is the soft, steady, hypnotic beat of her loom, a lonely metronome, counting out the seconds of a sorrow that will never, ever end. And so, the stories fade, the loom falls silent, the whispers of the Titan are lost to the void. The seer's painful visions dissolve into the darkness she was cursed to inhabit. All that remains are the echoes whispering in the quiet spaces of the night. 3 souls, 3 acts of defiance, 3 descents into an eternal twilight crafted by the gods. Their punishments were not simple acts of wrath. They were masterpieces of cruelty, each one a dark, poetic mirror of the crime. Lyra, who sought to share a truth of light and vision, was condemned to a world of endless night, her mind forever filled with the very visions she could no longer share. Alastor, who sought to control the world through a secret pact, was bound for eternity to the silent partner he betrayed, his kingdom of one now a lonely, featureless void. And Malia, the artist who used her craft to document suffering, was sentenced to an eternity where her art could only create it, her beautiful truth twisted into an instrument of despair. It is a quiet reminder that the gods of Olympus were not just powerful, they were architects of irony. They were artists of the soul, and their preferred medium was pain. They understood that the most perfect prison is not one of stone and iron, but one built from the hopes and talents of the prisoner themselves. To be punished with the very gift that made you dare to stand against them, that is a vengeance. That is truly divine. But now, their time is over. The gods, their victims, and their epic, terrible stories have played their part upon the stage of your mind. The theater is now closing. The great, heavy curtains of the night are drawing shut, and a gentle, peaceful silence begins to fall, a soft blanket to cover the sleeping world.